Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Well, what based on that, and based on how society is changing, how has your training changed?
This is a brand new. This is just coming out, talking about being on camera. There's a pilot program in the Massachusetts Police Academy where the recruits in the police academy are wearing body cameras to already get them prepared to be constantly on, surveillance. You're constantly on surveillance. Where I see training going is, I think you can become crime scene certified. You can become crime scene photography certified, just like you have to be certified when you are to be a fingerprint analyst or a footwear analyst. My guess is as we move forward, even investigators who are collecting, because there's no certification needed for that right now, but even the officers that are, or the detectives that are collecting that evidence, I'm dusting for the fingerprint and lifting it. I'm not analyzing it. I think at some point, everyone's going to need to be certified to process a crime scene, because everywhere is different, and you got to be careful with, I'll say, a universal standard. But there should be some standards, there should be some, especially for collecting evidence and packaging evidence. And every state is different, and the requirements are different. So I think when we move forward, that certification is going to be required. And then also the integration of VR. They have virtual reality crime scene investigation scenarios that you can put on your glasses, and then you can process these crime scenes and make it more realistic through virtual reality. So I think that's going to be moving forward, but I still don't think there's anything that takes place of a mock crime scene and having officers actually have to process and photograph and lift and do all that stuff. I still think that's going to be a standard.
It's interesting. I don't know if I would go as far as say they'd need to be certified in actually deciphering like fingerprints and DNA and things like that. But well, and especially based on what I do with the MVAC system and how much more sensitive it is in collecting DNA.
Yeah.
As I'm training certain police officers, or not police officers, but like crime scene techs, or lab people, but especially crime scene, I'm like, look, you have to go to your detectives and tell your detectives they can't be standing around, a living room with a body in it. They can't be standing around talking about the crime anymore and just gabbing, because their DNA is being spewed out. And I guarantee, especially with the MVAC, it's like you're going to have to submit. You're going to have to submit a saliva sample, because, a buccal swab to eliminate you, because your DNA is going to show up in the on the suspect's clothing or the victim's clothing.
I'm so glad you're saying this. I preach it, every contact leaves a trace. Locard's principal theory of exchange. And I preach this all the time. I say, we started using DNA in the United States in 1987. You needed a large, clean sample, one person. Now you, like you said, with the MVAC, you can do touch DNA. They have DNA where if it's a single donor DNA, it's a rapid DNA test. You get a result back in an hour. There's so much now. So when I tell people, like, you have to wear your protective gear, it's not only to protect you from the scene, it's to protect the scene from you. I don't know if in 10 years, just me talking this far away from the camera is going to be enough DNA. I don't know. So I'm wearing my mask and everything, because just me talking in 10 years, that might be enough. And now you're swabbing that, and my DNA is coming up because I've been in the crime scene. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I say that all the time. Like, I don't know where it's going, But you got to protect yourself or protect the scene from you, because you are leaving a trace, whether you can determine it or not. It's there, you know.
Yeah, I love that. Protect the scene from you. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's kind of a melodramatic in some ways, but you always see, like, especially Hollywood, you see these couple of detectives, they're standing over the body and they got their cigarette and they're like,
Yeah.
man, what do you think happened here?
Hey, Jared, I wish I could say that this happens. I was a young officer. I wasn't a detective yet, and I was investigating an unattended death, and I had gone to relieve a senior officer that's like hanging out, like protecting the scene, waiting for the medical examiner. And he's in there watching TV, eating a pizza. And he's sitting on the bed. There's the dead guy behind him, and he's sitting on the bed eating his pizza. And like, I'm new. I'm like, okay. So he's like, hey, hey, Kutch, you want some pizza? And I'm like, nah, I'm good. And then I remember the medical examiner showing up, and it was
There's
a
a dead guy
suicide.
behind him.
And the medical examiner's looking, and she says, and I didn't know her at the time. Again, I was brand new. She became a good friend of mine, but she's like looking around, and she's like, oh, well, it looks like he ate before he killed himself. And I'm like, yep, he sure did, because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? But if I had to tell people, like, you shouldn't eat and drink in a crime scene, like, they think I'm an idiot. They're like, yeah, no kidding. And I'm like, well, I'm telling you that because of, what happens. And yeah, things like that are
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my God, what are you doing? What is happening here? And that happens. That's why I say that it happens.
Well, fortunately, I hope that was a long time ago.
It was. I have to say that was at least 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, I'm sure anybody, especially if they're a detective, they're smart enough to know that physical evidence is so critical in
Oh my
casework
gosh.
now
Yeah.
that you can't be sitting on a bed eating a piece of pizza anymore
Oh my gosh.
with
But like,
the victim
and
right behind
every
you.
department is going to have like some stupid horror story of something that happened, and you're like, did that really happen? I had a shooting, and I was again, as the detective and the sergeant, I asked him, I'm like, well, where's the gun? And he pulled it out of, he had it in his waistband. He pulled it out of his waistband. That's
Oh
how he
no.
secured this gun. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, so again, when I make like jokes while I'm teaching, and I'm like, all right, so when I put a slide up that says, don't put the weapon in your pants, it's because someone has done that. Like, I want to pretend that there's no idiots in this room, but one of you might be, because like, I've had
Yeah.
it happen. Things like that where you're just like, oh my God. And
Yeah.
yeah, no matter how hard you try, there's always some little quirky thing, and you're just like, Jesus, what am I going to do now?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's interesting how, again, everything's evolving all the time,
Yeah.
and people understand that we're, especially with AI now, and
Oh yeah.
just the world is changing. So we'll be George Jetson here pretty quick. So
Yeah.
it's as we evolve, especially in solving cases. It used to be confessions and eyewitnesses were by far the most important thing that you could get
Yeah.
as a detective to solve a case. And but now every prosecuting attorney that I talk to, well, defense attorneys too, they said, if most cases, if all they have is an eyewitness, there's no way they're going to trial with that,
No
because
way. Yeah.
eyewitnesses, and there's people that will literally and lie on a stand, and they'll
Sure.
do it because they have some animosity toward the defendant. And the prosecutor just like, there's no way I'm going to go to trial with that, because it'll just get thrown out. So physical evidence is so critical nowadays that I think the emphasis on it, saying, look, if you go into a crime scene and you jack up that crime scene and you destroy evidence, there's a high likelihood that you're literally going to destroy your case.
Oh
And
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah,
100%.
and when cold cases, like being with MVAC, we deal a lot with cold cases, and sometimes they're old enough that back then, like you said, DNA started in 1987, but even then it was like, you required silver dollar size blood, pool, and to even determine the whether it's A positive or AB negative or whatever. But nowadays, 10 cells is all we need.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Can you imagine though? Think of that though. Before 1987, we were convicting people by blood type. You'd be like, you have the same, like we were, like you'd be like, oh, they have the same blood type as as blood left behind. That narrows it down to like 60 million people, and you're like, yeah, but it's the same blood type. Like, that's insane to me. Like some of the things that we like thought were good.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God.
This drug dealer saw you go into the building, and then we detected blood that was the same blood type as you, close to the victim. And
that's it. Blood type. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Not anymore.
No.
Not anymore, for sure.
Yeah.
So out of everything that you have seen over the years, and especially, your days as a detective, what's one of the craziest things? I mean, beside the detective sitting on the bed eating a piece of pizza with a victim, that's a great story. What else have you seen that you just look at it and you're like, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen?
One of my favorite stories. It's funny because like when you're in police work, you think that, it's going to be, I'll say, more TV like, and everything's going to be like crazy and all these good stuff. Some of my funniest and greatest stories are for nonsense, but they were just so outrageous. I had a guy, it's me and he's still my good friend. He's retired now. We talk about it all the time because it was the funniest thing we've ever seen. We go to this woman calls 911 for a domestic. Again, very standard. Again, this is where I like, you don't know. Go to this domestic. She comes out. And so we're calling this guy out. He's in his bedroom. We're set up, come out, come out, come out, come out. So finally he comes out. He's totally naked. And he's got a bird, like a parrot, on his shoulder with the tiniest penis I have ever seen in my life. And so now we're laughing because he's naked with a bird on his shoulder, and we're trying to call him out, and we're trying to be serious, but we're laughing. And so finally we get this guy like locked up and everything. And then my friend, he just takes this bird and puts it on his shoulder. We process this whole scene with this parrot like on his shoulder and just walking around with it, and then would put it down and it'd follow us around. And I'm like, where in the police academy would I learn like not to laugh at that situation, how to handle a parrot that is just like hanging out in the crime scene? Like those things are just so stupid and silly. And you're like, okay, yep, that never had that before. Another box of, nope, haven't learned this one before. So I think of that one all the time because it made me laugh so hard. Even when we meet up like once a month, and we're like, dude, remember that guy? Like it was just a silly, dumb thing. But yeah, that was a funny one. That was a good one.
Naked guy with a parrot. Haven't heard that one before.
Yeah. That's one of the things you always see is, I would say the majority of people that for unattended deaths are always naked. They just always seem to be naked. Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. I always think of that, like when I'm getting out of the shower, I'm always like, man, I hope I don't drop dead. Like every time that's the case.
Yeah, there's some mentally disturbing images, I'm sure, that you've seen that probably good that you can't transfer those.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
So part of your practice, I've read, is you make training videos and things like that when working with different technologies. So tell me a little bit about that.
I started out by saying, how much I just love forensic stuff. I love talking about it. I love talking about cases. Like I love it. So, gosh, this must have been maybe like 2011 or something like that. 2012 was like earlier YouTube. I started making YouTube videos just for my own like entertainment, and I would make videos on how to lift fingerprints or do shoe castings and things like that. Uh, and then that's how people started finding me and asking me to come and teach them. And so now, like, I try to make videos about everything. It does two things. One, certainly for forensic people that might not know, and they're like, "Oh, geez, I never thought of that," or a new device or a new piece of equipment. But I also like it because it gives people who may not know about it. It gives them knowledge about it, and a lot of them will be interested and say, "Oh, how do I get into this work? How do I do these things?" And that I really like. Like I like being able to share that, and then get questions of, "Oh, well, can you lift a fingerprint off of this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Let's find out. Can we get DNA from this? I don't know. Let's find out." So I really try to open that up and go on all the Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. You kind of put everything out there, and people find you, and they want to know. People are interested because they watch these shows and they want to know how real it is, and um, is it true they can or they can't, and I love sharing it. So yeah, I love doing videos with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I would start with, because we make a lot of videos, obviously, about the MVAC system, but um, as far as some of these shows, what we've found is, if they're a drama related show, then
Yeah,
a lot of the technology may be kind of either altered or, not quite,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, not quite realistic. But you get into shows like Forensics Files,
Oh
especially
yeah,
the
yeah.
Forensics Files 2, some of those that are more, uh,
Reality
how do you describe
based.
them? I mean, they have a little bit of drama with them, but at the same time, they're a lot more fact based.
Yeah, well, they're
Those,
recalling like real facts, not like a fake storyline.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I found that those shows are really accurate, and
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
I've talked to some agencies that they'll actually, like Forensics Files, for example. It's a 4 segment show, and
yeah,
the third segment is always based on technology.
yeah.
And there's agencies that'll actually order they'll get that third segment, and they can use them in
Sure.
like as training videos. I mean, that's how good they are. So it's
Yeah,
pretty
they do a good
impressive.
job. I've used them as well. Like I've gone on and like I'll be watching it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I never knew this. And then I go down that rabbit hole and be like, I gotta find it, I gotta find out about this stuff, because
Yeah.
I didn't know that it existed. Which is why I always say, like when we were talking about training earlier on, you have got investigators, they have got to get involved in, I keep talking about the IAI or your local IAI. Like you got to get involved in these groups because that's how I'll be right up front. Like that's how I can teach because I don't know everything, and I'll go to these conferences and meet somebody and they're teaching a topic of the first time that they used this or that thing, and I'm like, this is awesome. I'm including that in my training. Oh, this is awesome. I'm including that in my training. Like you gotta stay current, and that's where we fall behind. I have people come to my class. I haven't taken a crime scene class in 15 years. Well, a lot's happened in 15 years, and that's where we fall behind. It's
Yeah.
you got to stay current, and that's the best way to do it. Is like those conferences. I love going to those conferences.
Yeah. Well, there's so much information out there as well as just,
Yeah,
uh, you know, eh, how, what is it? They say that the younger generation gets 75% of their information from YouTube and TikTok now.
yeah,
So, but there's so much information out there, and obviously there's a lot of misinformation too. But as far
yeah,
as technologies, you can go, you could probably go to YouTube and type in MVAC. You could type in Faro. You could type in,
yep,
VMD for vacuum metal deposition, rapid HT, rapid DNA. I
yep.
mean, there's so much information out there that you could get with, just on YouTube and stuff. But, and then it might take you, if you just Google it or DuckDuckGo it, you could send it off to, websites, and there's just an incredible amount of information. I know as the business owner of MVAC, it's just so critical that we just are constantly putting out new information. Just because it's, if you don't keep it fresh and keep it up in the feeds and hitting it on, the social media and everything, it's just, people just miss it. And
and that's what I like about the videos too, is like, it's interesting. Like, you as a business owner, you put out a video, and I don't want to say that mine are amateur, but it's coming from like a practitioner, not from the salesperson. Like, of course, if I'm selling you whatever device, it's going to be very like, this is all it can do. And people like to know, well, like, how does it really work? How do you like it? How do you, and then I can say, oh, check this out. Can you find? And so I get a lot of that too, where they'll check the company's parameters in videos, and then they'll check mine and kind of compare them and say, does it really do all of these things? Like, kind of like bringing it to the mechanic, make sure that it is a good car, kind of thing. And I like that too, where I can kind of give them, oh yeah, I really like this. Or I was testing an electrostatic dust lifter, and I was lifting a print off of some shirts, and the guy who created this Stati lift, he had emailed me, and he's like, oh, I created that. I never even thought of using it for that. And I'm like, oh, it works awesome. So I use it all the time for that. And so those are the things that I like to kind of cross-check and be like, oh, let's make a video of it. I would love to feature it and show people what it can do. Because I think that connection helps people feel like, all right, this is something I should get. I like this.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Like that. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Well, based on that, what's so you have a website, training videos, where can people find all this stuff?
So my website has if you want to contact me to host a training, so either for police departments or forensic science teachers, I do that for like high school forensic science teachers or college science teachers, or for police departments. So I have contacts on my website, forensiceducation.net. And then they can also, you see the upcoming trainings that I have there. And then to see the videos and what's out there, on Instagram, Forensic Education, TikTok, Forensic Education. The only one that's my name, Mike McCutcheon, is on YouTube. But if you put in Forensic Education, it still pops up, because I always put those in the title. But I started the YouTube before I had a business. I was just doing it as me, and I never changed it over. So, but if you put in Forensic Ed in there, all that stuff will pop up. But the website's the best way to get a hold of me if you want to host or come to one of the trainings.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's forensicseducation.net.
Yes, yep.
So if they put in forensicseducation.com, where's that going to take them?
It's one of those things where like the domain name was used, and so it'll be like, would you like to purchase this? And I've tried to do that, but they want like so much money, and I'm like, I'll just use .net. It's fine. And it's forensic, no S on that, Forensic Education. But yeah, the .com will just go to nowhere.
Awesome. All right. Well, Dr. McCutcheon, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Everybody go out and check out his website and his videos, and we'll definitely have those in the show notes, so people can find you. And yeah, hopefully at this next II that's out in Florida, you're going to be there.
Yeah. I actually put in to do a lecture, so I think I'm going to be doing a footwear lecture. They reached out to make sure I had what I needed. They haven't confirmed it, but I'll be there anyway. But I should be doing 2 footwear lectures.
Awesome. Well, we'll have a booth there, so make sure to come by.
Oh, absolutely. Awesome. Thanks, man.
Okay. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.